Today's episode of Variant is brought to you by Domain.com. Today on Variant, I give you the history of the man without fear, Daredevil. Welcome to Variant. We love comics more than Dexter wants Dee Dee out of his laboratory. I'm your host, Arris Quinones. We all know that the live-action Daredevil series is set to debut on Netflix very, very soon, April 10th to be exact, meaning a lot of you have wanted me to do a History of Daredevil episode. Which brings us to today's episode, my comic comrades, so I'm going to break down why this red-horned hero is one of the coolest and unique characters Marvel has to offer, as well as giving you some good Daredevil reading recommendations. The character debuted in Daredevil Issue 1 in April of 1964, created by the great Stan Lee and artist Bill Everett, with character design input from Jack Kirby, who devised Daredevil's Billy Club. When Everett turned in his first issue pencils extremely late, Marvel production manager Sol Brodsky and Spider-Man co-creator Steve Ditko created a large variety of different backgrounds. Writer and historian for comic books Mark Evanier concluded but hasn't confirmed that Jack Kirby designed the basic image for Daredevil's costume, though Everett modified it. The original character's costume design was a combination of black, yellow, and red reminiscent of an acrobat's tights. But his original costume only lasted 4 issues. In Daredevil Issue 5, Daredevil's costume was updated by artist Wally Wood to show the iconic double D symbol on his chest, replacing the single D from the original costume. 2 issues later, in Daredevil Issue 7, Wood completely redesigned Daredevil's costume to the red one we all know and love today. But let's move along to the nitty-gritty Daredevil's origin. His real name is Matt Murdock. He was raised in Hell's Kitchen, a neighborhood in New York City, by his father, boxer Battalion Jack Murdock. From a young age, Matt was pushed to work hard in school so he wouldn't have to fight like his father. His father also worked hard to provide for him so he would have a better life. As boxing work became scarce, Jack went to work for a local mobster called the Fixer, moonlighting as an enforcer in addition to taking fights. While his father was away, Matt secretly started training himself on his father's equipment. While walking down the street one day, Matt noticed a blind man who was about to get hit by a truck. He ran in front of the truck and pushed the blind man out of the way. However, the truck was carrying radioactive waste and some of it spilled directly onto Matt's eyes, causing him to go blind. With his vision gone, Matt's remaining senses of hearing, touch, taste, and smell became heightened, and he was able to see using a radar sense that showed outlines and shapes. The radiation also may have had an impact on his mind as well, allowing him to retain information very easily. Matt continued his studies and his secret training regiment. His hard work paid off when he got into Columbia to study law. It was there that he met his roommate and future business partner Franklin Foggy Nelson. During this time, Jack Murdock was enjoying some success in the boxing ring, so Matt got tickets for himself and Franklin to go see the bout. Before the fight, Jack found out that all his matches were fixed, and he was gonna get killed if he didn't throw the match. Jack didn't want to lose the match in front of his son, so he went against his orders and won the fight. The Fixer didn't take this well, and he murdered Jack Murdock on his way home from the match. Shortly after Matt and Nelson graduated from Columbia, they started their own law firm. After graduation, Matt also devised a plan to avenge his father's death. He made the Daredevil costume and brought the Fixer and his second-in-command Slade to justice, and just like that, Daredevil, the man without fear, was born. But was Daredevil the only person given powers the day he got hit with radioactive chemicals? Some of you may be saying, what the heck are you talking about, Arris? Well, a lot of us comic book fans choose to believe that the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles were also created the very day Matt Murdock got hit in the eyes with the radioactive waste. Why do many of us believe that, you ask? Allow me to explain. As most of us know, the Ninja Turtles were created when a bottle of radioactive ooze fell on them. And if we take a look back from when this first happened in the Ninja Turtles' first comic book issue from 1984, we see a young boy run in the middle of the street and save a blind man who's about to be hit by a moving truck carrying radioactive chemicals. Which should sound like deja vu to you because, as I just said a minute ago, Matt Murdock got his powers when he ran into the middle of the street to save a blind man who was about to get hit by a truck that was carrying radioactive materials. So basically, a lot of comic book fans, me being one of them, believe that the chemicals that gave Daredevil his powers are the same chemicals / ooze that gave the Ninja Turtles their powers. As we see in the Ninja Turtles comic, right after the canister of ooze hits the young boy in the eyes, it then hits the turtles and made them fall into a manhole where Splinter found them and raised them to be the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Now, obviously, none of this is fact since Daredevil and the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles are owned by 2 completely different companies, but it's still fun to think that Daredevil and the Ninja Turtles were created the same day by the same exact chemicals. Moving on, Daredevil has been around for a very long time, and because he's been around for such a long time, writers have had to fill in the blanks per se, or proceed with retcons to explain or change things about Daredevil's story for a modern reader. For example, his full origin was slightly altered when Frank Miller wrote the miniseries The Man Without Fear. When Frank Miller took over the writing duties, he decided that the story needed to be revamped. Miller left the foundation of Daredevil's history intact, but added the idea that he was trained in combat by someone like him, a blind ninja master named Stick. Stick had begun training Murdock at a young age and taught him many many ninja techniques, further explaining his radar sense and his amazing martial art abilities. In Miller's run on Daredevil, it suggested that Daredevil's radar sense was not something that Daredevil gained as a result of his heightened senses, but something that was learned. When Daredevil's abilities became faded, Stick teaches Daredevil again how to use his radar sense. Miller's run on Daredevil is also where the Netflix show got his black costume we see him wearing in the promo pictures and the trailers for the show. And if the show was anything like the comic, we're in for one great series. Daredevil's time wearing the yellow costume in the beginning of his career was also rewritten by Jeff Loeb in a miniseries called Daredevil Yellow, which details major parts of Daredevil's earlier career. Since Daredevil spent a very short time wearing the costume, Loeb was able to encompass that entire period in one miniseries. Daredevil has also been part of many different Marvel teams over the years, like New Avengers and Defenders, which will be getting a miniseries on Netflix. He's also had many different love interests, but his first and most notable one is Elektra, as we've all seen in the Daredevil movie. I've made it known I'm not a fan of that movie, even the director's cut, but the Daredevil movie is a cinema masterpiece in comparison to the god-awful train wreck disaster of a film called Elektra. Come on, Jennifer Gardner. You're better than that. But now let's move on to powers and abilities. Daredevil has a vast array of powers, like his radar sense, which allows him to see what's around him. It's similar to echolocation. Super hearing, Daredevil's hearing functions are so good he can hear a person's heartbeat at a distance of over 20 feet, or people whispering on the other side of a standard soundproofed wall. Super touch, Daredevil's sense of touch is so acute that his fingers can feel the ink on a page, allowing him to read by touch. He can also feel minute temperature changes and pressure changes, including body heat from people standing nearby. Super smell, Daredevil's smell is so precise that he can focus on a person's smell and follow it through a crowd of people at a distance of 50 feet, or gunpowder from a sniper rifle almost 3 blocks away. Lie detection, Daredevil can tell whether a person is lying by listening to changes in their heartbeat or by smelling their sweat when they're under pressure. He has agility due to the fact that Daredevil's sensory organs have such a high level of development. His inner ear, which controls the equilibrium in the motions of his body, is also highly developed, aiding in acrobatic feats that may surpass even Olympic level athletes. And of course, he is also extremely intelligent. With all that said, Daredevil does have a weakness. Daredevil's superhuman senses render him extraordinarily vulnerable to excessive sound, odors, etc., which can temporarily weaken his radar sense. If he is bombarded by too much sound at once, Daredevil can easily be immobilized, which causes him great pain and leaves him disoriented. Due to his blindness, he is unable to discern pictures or video images, and he can only guess at colors based on the amount of heat they are absorbing or reflecting. But he has been able to make out images by feeling them out. Also, Daredevil is as susceptible to physical injury and disease as any normal human. But now that you know a little bit more about Daredevil's history and powers, you probably want to know some good Daredevil villains. You have the Enforcers. The Enforcers are a group of hired assassins. The Hand, they're a supervillainous ninja organization. Bullseye, a deadly killer for hire capable of using practically anything as a lethal projectile weapon with flawless accuracy and deadly force. He is one of the most psychotic and sadistic characters in Marvel. And Kingpin, he's a self-proclaimed kingpin of crime. Wilson Fisk is one of the most prominent figures of organized crime in the United States. And now that brings us to reading recommendations, because now that you know a little bit more about Daredevil, you might want to start reading his comics, which I recommend because he's awesome, so I got you covered. You have Daredevil Yellow, the Elektra Saga, Daredevil Born Again, Daredevil the Man Without Fear, Daredevil Issue 1, Daredevil Volume 1 Devil at Bay, and Daredevil Volume 1 by Mark Waid. I think those should be enough to get your Daredevil fix. When you buy a domain name from domain.com, you get the power to influence and control what people find when they search for you online. No domain extension will help you tell your story like a .com or .net domain name. Domain.com is affordable, reliable, and easy to use. The guys at domain.com gave Variants an awesome offer. Get 15% off domain.com's already affordable domain names and web hosting when you use the coupon code VARIANT at checkout. So when you think domain names, think domain.com. First up for April 8th, we have Darth Vader Issue 4. In this issue, Vader returns to Geonosis to build his army. Next, we have Convergence Superman Issue 1. A powerless Superman is called upon to protect Gotham City, and his wife Lois Lane is pregnant. Here we have Convergence Batgirl Issue 1. After a year living under the confinement of a dome, Stephanie Brown isn't sure she wants to be Batgirl again. And finally, we have Convergence Issue 1. This is a must check out for any DC fan. The entire DC universe from the dawn of time through the New 52 must fight to survive against the threat that bends the multiverse to its will. And that brings another episode of Variant to a close. But remember, you can always like our Variant Facebook page to keep up with the show and all things comic related. You can also follow me on Twitter at twitter.com/Arris_Quinones. But I will see your lovely faces next week when I talk about all things comics.
Arris, the Marvel character that I want to get their own movie is Namor the Submariner. Now, it's not because I like the character, but because he's an integral part of the Illuminati, and I would love to see them in the MCU.
I think Silver Surfer needs his own show just because he's so awesome.
Hey Arris, I think a Marvel character that should get its own movie is Moon Knight.
I think we should get a Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver Origins movie.
Dead Man.